Hi, I'm Catherine from Catherine Learns Stuff. Today I'm going to walk you through how to make this beautiful spring tree. So let's jump in. I quickly wanted to go over the paper that we're going to need for this craft. I'm going to be using 2 browns, and then I've got 4 different sort of bright colors for the leaves of my tree. If you are using 8.5 by 11 sheets like I am, you're going to need 2 of each of the color ones. If you're using 12 by 12 sheets, you'll need to only use 1 sheet. And then with the brown sheets, you're going to need to verify how big you've made this to make sure if it fits on an 8.5 by 11 or on a 12 by 12. Now I've sized this to be 10 inches wide, the whole design, so that 8.5 by 11s will work for the trunk, but if you make it bigger, you will need to have that a larger size. For this craft, I'm also going to be using a canvas instead of using a picture frame, but you can use a picture frame. I'm using a 11 by 14 canvas, and I'm also going to need some glue. So I quickly want to go over just how to use the template that I've created for this circle tree. Now, you obviously can make your own. I've just created a template in case you want to. It can save you a little bit of time, but it's not free, so you can get it at my website. And I've left a link for that below in the description. So all you'll need to do is you'll need to go to upload, and then you will want to upload this into your files. Now, I'm just going to copy and drag it from my files. And I'm just going to copy and drag it over here, and this is the file. Now don't worry about it saying it's too big. It will come in. It just takes a moment. You can change the name if you would like, and this is the design that comes into your Cricut design space. Now I've designed this so that this is 10 inches in width, so we're just going to change this to 10. It will make this a little bit bigger. Obviously you can change this to make this bigger or smaller. And I want to just point out here that this white circle that we have, I'm going to ungroup this here. This white circle, you can cut it out if you'd like. You don't need to. This is just what I've used to sort of hold my flowers in place. And that you can cut it out and use it as a stencil to trace your circle around, or you can actually cut it out in a different color and have it as a background for your tree. And I want to point out that even though these flowers here come off of the tree, these surplus petals can be used in different spots along the design. And the tree itself will be behind the flowers, so you won't actually notice them hanging out. And so I don't have any score lines in the hearts because I find that that's going to take forever to cut out, and it's easier to just fold it by hand, and that will work perfectly as well. So once you've got this all ready, you can select Make It. I'm not going to save. And now everything is going to come out here ready to cut. And if you want to use 8.5 by 11, you will need 2 sheets of paper for the top 2 purple colors, and the other 2 will come out on 8.5 by 11s individually on a full sheet. So, and everything else can be cut out on an 8.5 by 11 other than the circle if you want to cut it out, but you don't need to. So we're going to click continue. I'm going to cut this out on my Cricut, and I will meet you at our workstations. Each flower has 8 petals, and each petal has 2 hearts in it. And when I was making this in Cricut Design Space, I didn't add the score line because it was just going to take too long. So I'm just going to manually add score lines to all of my hearts. And I'm going to show you quickly here what we need to do with this so that we can have a whole bunch of flower petals ready. I'm just going to score this across the center like this and fold this in half. And that's my half of my petal. Now each flower petal has 2 hearts in it. So once I have the outer heart folded, I'm going to do the same thing for the inner heart, and I'm going to fold this one here, and they're going to actually sit inside of each other. So one will be like this and like this, so it'll be a little bit more of a flower. So I'm going to be gluing this piece to this piece and then having them sort of folded like this. Now if you don't want to do that, you can just leave them plain, that with them not having them glued in, to save yourself some time. So I'm going to quickly score and fold all of my flowers, and then we'll start to do the gluing as well. So we'll just do a quick fast forward and meet you over there. Now that all of my hearts are folded, what I need to do is I need to glue 2 pieces into each heart. So I've got 2 hearts, and I'm just going to simply glue one. Oh, I'm going to glue one half of a heart into another heart, and this is going to give me a nice fold. I was saying before, you don't need to do this, but this will give the flowers a little bit more depth when you've got them. So I'm going to quickly glue all a million of these that I've cut here. Now, when I did this, the design that I have has a few extra hearts just so that they can be placed inside the tree as well, but you don't need to glue them all. You can sort of do it as you go if you'd prefer. So the one thing that I realized when I was making these hearts, and it's not a huge deal, but it kind of will have a slight impact later when I'm putting this together. When I glued these hearts together, I didn't actually pay attention to left or right, which way I was gluing it. And so when you look at it sort of this way, let me move this down, the hearts look the same, but when I fold it, you can see a little bit this way how it looks this way, and when I fold it this way, the fold comes all the way up. So you're not actually getting that extra bend. So when you're gluing these together, because they're all facing the same direction, if I flip this over, you can see that bend there. When you're gluing these together, you want to try, because when I have it like this, it's not going to show up. That bend isn't going to show up there. That second petal isn't going to show up in there as well when it's folded, when it's glued on the opposite side. So when you're gluing these together, ideally you want to try to, if you're gluing the left side of the heart, you want to glue the left side of the heart on all of the hearts so that they have the same sort of fold area in your flower petals later, so that it all kind of looks nice, but we'll still make it work. So that's just something to keep in mind when you are working on this craft. So when I'm putting this together, I'm going to be working on canvas, and you can use a picture frame if you prefer and just have a regular piece of paper in there. The choice is yours. I'm using canvas because that's what I have handy, and I'm going to put this on my wall. The one thing that I want to point out though is, since I'm using canvas, gluing everything onto the canvas is a little bit harder if you have just paper and glue. So you may need to put a coat of paint onto your canvas beforehand so that the canvas allows the glue to stick, or you may need to use a lot more glue. When I'm doing this, I've pre-cut out a circle that I can use for my tree. Now this circle isn't going to be part of my design, it's just going to be what I use for my outline. And I want to be able to place this with my tree on it here so that I can see where everything is going to fall into place, so that I've got space for everything. So I can pull the tree down or move it up, and I think I'm going to sort of try to have my tree maybe like this. Now you can use the way that I've designed it in the SVG file if that's what you're starting out with, if you're using the pieces that I've provided. That way you'll have more space around the bottom here for flowers if you have your tree up higher, but you'll also can have space up top for more flowers if you prefer. So I like the way that I have this laid out right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trace this circle very lightly with pencil so that I can know where I need to stay in with my flower petals. And I'm just going to make a little small mark right here that you can't even see really, to know that that's where the bottom of my tree is going to be. And I'm just going to gently trace this with pencil. Now once I'm done later, I'm going to need to erase this, so the lighter I can do this, the better, because that way I'm not going to have to erase it as much. And my circle tracing skills are not the most fantastic as it turns out. And that's the circle that I'm going to want to stay within when I'm putting my flowers on. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue the top and bottom parts of the tree together before I place it onto my canvas. So I'm simply going to be using my glue and applying glue on the back side of my upper tree. Now in my design, I've done a light tree and that goes on top just to give a little bit more contrast. You don't need to use that piece if you don't want to. You can, but you do not need to. It's your choice. Obviously, as with crafts, that's how it works. And I probably shouldn't be doing this on my canvas because now I'm going to be leaving spots of glue on my canvas, but that's all right. And now this glue dries clear, so any spots that you see that right now that I have that are shining through, those will be dried clear, so you won't notice that. And I'm going to rub my glue in here so that it doesn't get in the way everywhere. And I've got a little stray piece of branch here that doesn't want to glue, so I'm just going to snip that and get rid of it. Now my tree is ready to be attached to my canvas. the first thing that I want to do is I want to glue this tree onto the canvas that I have. Now, I've made a little mark here to know where the bottom of my tree goes so that I can have a spot for it to attach. Now, I mentioned I'm gluing onto canvas, and so canvas and paper and glue don't always work very well. So you may need to use a lot of glue. You may need to paint your canvas beforehand to give it a little bit more ability to adhere, or you can just use like a picture frame with a piece of paper instead of using canvas altogether. Now I'm going to go heavy with the glue, and I'm going to place this down here. I'm just going to hold this for a few moments to let it adhere properly so that it doesn't come up. Now, when you're working on canvas, if you're finding that the canvas is too wobbly and has too much give in it, you can put a book underneath it that's the size of the inside of the canvas so that you've got a hard backing to work with at the back. So while I wait for this to glue, we will take a quick fast forward and I'll meet you back once this is all dried. So now my tree is dried on. I want to start putting my flowers on. Now, if you remember when we cut them out, we had a whole bunch of different sizes. We had sort of the large, the medium, the small, maybe an even extra small, depending on which ones I cut out here and which ones I have. I suggest that you start off by using the large flower petals first. Those will help us take up the bulk of the space, and then that way we can fill in the other spaces with our smaller flowers. So I'm going to just show you here, before we glue anything, we need to remember the concept of these flowers, because I don't know if it's very easy to recall in the SVG. Each flower has 8 petals, right? Now you may have done the double petal like I did with where we've glued them in, or you may have just left it simple with one, which is also a wonderful option to do. And so each flower kind of looks like this. The open is facing in the same direction for all of the flowers, and we want to place them kind of in a circle like this. Now, before we put any glue on them, it's good to practice where you're going to put this to have an idea of how this is going to go, because once you start to glue this stuff down, you're not going to be able to move it as easily. So I like the placement of this flower, and I'm going to sort of do one flower at a time. I've got only 3 big flowers on my design, so I need to make sure that they all have a space. And I think I'm going to try to do an orange one here. And if you want to stay symmetric in your whole design, you can make sure that the petals are always facing in the same direction, but you can also make sure, you can also mix and match to have one flower facing right and one flower facing left. Now, again, I'm not super good at just placing these wherever I want to have them show up nicely. So I do need to make sure that I do a little bit of a practice run before I glue any of this down. And you don't need to worry if the flowers don't line up perfectly on the stems of the tree, because the tree is there as an accent. It doesn't need to be all lined up. And I'm going to move this flower over a little bit, maybe a bit here, so that I've got space for my other big flower over here. So I'm going to sort of try to have them like this. Maybe move this one a little bit closer to the leaf there. So I'm going to first start off by gluing these 3 on. And remember, we've got 8 petals on each flower, and we want them, each flower petals facing the same direction, but they don't need to be facing the same direction as the other flowers if we don't want to. That choice is up to you. So I'm going to quickly glue this on fast forward, and then we will start to look at the other flowers that we have. So when I was putting these flowers on, this yellow one, I started off more close to the center of the tree here, and I ended up coming off the edge of the canvas. For this project, since it's on canvas, it doesn't make a big difference, but when you're doing this, and if you have a paper or it's going into a frame, you want to make sure that you're starting a little bit farther in, or starting on the outer edge of the circle that we drew with your outer petals so that they stay within the size of the tree. So now that we have our main flowers done, I'm going to start off with my next size flowers, which are the medium ones. And I've got several different colors for those. I've got green, I've got orange, I have some yellow, and I have pink. So again, I'm going to place these around my tree, in different spots before I glue them down to make sure that I have a good place for them. And once we get closer into the center of the tree, I might leave some blank spots so that I've got the ability to put petals in different spots in different layouts. Also, one thing I want to keep in mind when I'm making these flowers is I want to try to stay within this circle. So I can do half petals around the edges of the circle and sort of around the edges of the tree so that they stay in the circle but have a nice design on our tree. So I'm going to fast forward this process and put these petals onto the tree for us. So I'm happy with the placement of the flowers that I have so far. So what I'm going to do now before I continue, because I've got a few little spots here and there that I can fill in, I want to glue these all down first so that I can not move them around. And that way I can have an idea of where I need to add more flowers or not. So again, I'm going to do this in fast forward so that you're not watching me for the next 20 minutes gluing each petal down. So now that I'm done gluing all my flowers on, they're all nicely adhered. I'm going to quickly, just with an eraser, erase the line that I've got around the edges here. And if all goes well, this will erase nicely and I won't have any residue of my pencils marks. And there you have it. It's all finished. You can add some more petals if you'd like, but they just kind of need to go anywhere to fill them in. And now we just need to place this on our wall and it's all finished. And there you have it. We've successfully completed our spring tree. I hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I have. If you have enjoyed this project, I've left a link in the description below to my shop where you can access the file that I used to make this project. Thanks so much for watching and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy crafting!